Hello, everyone. Welcome back. We've decided to make a slight adjustment. Because we only have one guest from both G2 and Fnatic, we're going to do them at the same time. It'll be I don't know, it might be a mess, I'm going to be honest, but I think it's going to be fun. So we have, of course, Caps representing G2, Bwipo representing Fnatic. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you for coming out. How are you both doing today?
Well, I mean, it's pretty early, right? But I'm honored to be invited to Euphoria. So
there you go. I'm all happy to have you, man. It's been a long time coming. Bwipo, you're of course coming back. Number one comment on you being here alone was, of course, Bwipo's here alone because he talks so much.
Well, I guess I found my replacement.
I don't know why people complain about that. They're like,
I don't know. It's good.
We want information from Euphoria. We want interviews, and we put Bwipo, and they're like, "Oh, but this guy talks so much." I'm like, what the fuck? You can't have it both ways. Pick one.
Don't worry. We'll get guests that don't talk. It'll just be Frostgurn. If you just want Frostgurn to talk, we can do that. That's its own show.
Oh, please no. Yeah, drink that water.
Get out of this one. So, Bwipo, I want to ask you on your feelings on kind of the final weeks for Fnatic, and we'll ask the same to you, Caps, in a second. But you guys went from third place, obviously, like, huge turnaround in the split. Last time we talked to you, I'm going to be honest, we walked away from that episode being like, these guys are dead. Like, there's no way.
Dead?
You were both, like, you and Broxy were both very intense.
Very dire.
Yeah, like, Broxy was very emotional. You were very focused, but, like, you both had very different reasons for why Fnatic was struggling. So from our perspective, we were like, I don't think they have enough time to get it together. Now, luckily for you, luckily for the Fnatic fans out there, we were wrong. You guys did pull it together. You rose up. I mean, you've been kicking ass. So what happened? Like, what changed? What turned this around for you guys?
Honestly, I think trust was a really big deal. Like a really, really, really big deal. I think just half of the comms on stage, whenever someone got ahead, it was just, don't int. This guy has like this much of an advantage. Just try not to lose the game. And we're going to win it real fast. So just this type of trust that you get from your teammates, it just helps, right? If someone says it to you. Like when I was playing against Misfits, of course, I remember that game. When I was playing Aatrox, it was like 5-0, you know. Reckless was specifically saying, just chill. There's no need to contest anything until he gets here. And with he meant the shy cosplay, you know.
Yeah.
The guy that came around with like 3 items and which one hit anyone that walked up. So it just feels like you're empowered. It feels like you have even more reason to carry the game and you feel like you can actually do it. Because this is something that teams with less experience don't have, is when someone gets really far ahead, even if the guy can carry alone, you'll still feel like you need to give him resources. And when you do that, you're making yourself weaker. So the rest of the map is getting weaker because, like, let's say, for example, Reckless is like 4-0 or like he's winning bot lane. He's got like 40 CS up. He's got 2 kills, 4 plates. At that point, I'm still going to be like entranced to TP down there. Whereas if I just let him build his advantage and make sure I don't fall behind, he's going to win the game for me eventually. But the thing about trust is I don't need to TP down there. I'll trust that he's going to do that on his own or with his jungler or with whoever wants to help him. And I'm going to make sure that the other side of the map doesn't break.
Okay. One, I'm going to get I want Caps' opinion on that specific statement, but at what point did you decide we didn't need to teleport bottom? Because I'll be honest, for a few weeks there, I really looked like the only thing you wanted to do was teleport bottom.
Honestly, it's just, it's a game-to-game thing, right? You're not actually going to...
There's a lot of games where it's stacked
I am
up.
pushing this wave and I'm going to look... Like, there's a difference between saying I'm going to take priority, I'm going to look to TP bot, and just being like, no matter what happens, I'm going down there. So... it just happened, and I thought it was funny because it just happened. Honestly, like most of them were actually quite successful. It wasn't like we TP'd bot for nothing, right? It was,
True.
There was usually something.
It was
one
close to
time
not
where it was
working.
like we both TP'd for 1 kill, and it was like, you know, like maybe it wasn't worth it. But at that point, maybe it became a little bit of a habit.
There you go. Caps, from your perspective, Fnatic obviously like were definitely bombing the first half of the split. They came back around. They barely beat you. Game of inches. That was an insane game. How do you feel about their development? Like, because they went from no one cares to now I think a lot of people are nervous about playing this team in playoffs.
yeah, I mean, so it's like always hard to say from the outside probably. It's not like I like hard studied all their games, and sure I get some insight from Bwipo, but it's to really know what's going on is like harder from the outside. So I'm not completely sure if what exactly happened, but a trend I can see a lot of their games is that they level 1 invade and they do like early cheeses.
They do love those.
And stuff like this. We saw like with the TP bot as well, right? So it feels like they practice a lot of like set plays that they can just do every game basically, and they have basically been having a lot of success with that. The only worry I have is like going to playoffs is maybe going to be a bit harder to do the same. is what I'm thinking. But I guess we'll see in a week.
Yeah, how many different level 1s can Fnatic come up with, or different level 2 gank pass for Broxa?
I think it's more so, and this is awkward saying this next to a Fnatic member, but just wiggle eyebrows if close. I feel like Fnatic are really good at establishing a strong side of the map and then playing around that or understanding exactly how to abuse it, especially in the context of this big trust conversation of if we can create one strong side of a map at least, then all you have to do is just absorb pressure on the other side and then wait for that guy to move around.
Definitely, but I also feel like it's because most teams aren't actually good at transferring their strong side of the map into an advantage.
I literally just like set that one up for him. I was like, how softly is he going to catch this? And he was just like, every other team is guarding.
No. I mean, it's just the way it is, right? Like, even in the game against G2, where I obviously fell really far behind, that was mostly 1 versus 1. When we were on the bottom side of the map and you had Jankos up in the top side sweeping my ward out and stuff like this, that's obviously establishing a strong side of the map. But the thing is that he never actually influenced the matchup. Whereas when we set up the strong side of the map, we were able to clearly influence that bot lane 2v2 and take some advantages there, if you will. So I feel like the same happens the other way around. When we're playing around the top side of the map, our bottom side of the map is generally speaking not taking nearly as much of a hit. And I think that's more on the other teams than on us. But I agree. When we're somewhere, it's usually with a purpose.
You know what's great about the whole fiddlesticks thing is that when you say flash fiddlestick someone to mean like yeah, it still works. Because that's what Reckless and Hilly did to Luca.
Oh,
I don't even know what flash.
she's not allowed to say the F word, so she has to say fiddlesticks.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know.
So as we were saying, when Perk stepped up to get the CS, and then Hilly reconned him, and then Aurelia got first blood, and then rocked into your lane, you're like, well, I guess 2 sides of the map now collapse. And G2 was like,
So from your perspective, Cabs, talk to me about the past few weeks for G2, because you guys were like on top of the world. You locked first place in week 8, and then I mean, obviously this Fnatic game was tough. You guys did really well to survive as long as you did.
Was it tough or fun?
Well, I mean, it was not very fun, at least for me, like the early game. But then at some point, I guess it was kind of fun. Obviously, getting late game with set is always fun. But yeah, early game was like not that fun. Even, not sure.
I can relate. It never got fun for me, though.
Yeah.
For a little gangplank, you hit a couple barrels in the end there. You got a good
hold there and
They didn't really deal damage, though. Like I was struggling for my life. When I finished my Infinity at just 37 minutes, I was like, okay, do I go tanky and then like don't deal damage and then still get 1 hit? Or do I try to scrape together some components and maybe hit the lottery, you know? And then when I hit the lottery, it wasn't really what I wanted.
Bwipo, aka the Tickler, did a little bit of damage there.
You got massive flame for that GP pick. Do you want to defend it?
Of course I do. All right, name me. I'm gonna play a minigame here. If Caps wants to help out, he can, but I don't think he will.
I was aboard the GP.
Minigame. Find me a champion I can pick top lane when you see Cassiopeia, Ryze, and Jarvan locked in, and they have the option to 5-pick top. Name me one champion with Aatrox and Renekton banned that I can blind pick in that situation.
Why wouldn't you go for something like a Poppy or a Scion versus a GP?
Well, versus GP?
Or
no, instead of GP.
Oh,
versus Ryze.
Blind pick? Well, first of all, I don't think Ryze into Poppy is that much more fun. He still has counter pick option, right? So he could even take the GP into any tank I take, and he's probably gonna outvalue me there. I can probably name a few more Conqueror champions that will slaughter any tank I blind pick.
So do you think this was an issue that if you went for a tank matchup and then took like the soft loss and say like, oh, at least my champion will have utility later on, that they could then GP? So there was the fact that GP was on the board as a possible option and that you just didn't want to get outscaled that hard?
I mean, it was just... We had Karthus, right? So physical damage was nice. So bringing another physical damage pick into as the GP was not a bad idea, I think. That said, again, it's just I can either take a bad matchup that scales, or I can take a bad matchup that scales and is not really useful. Like if I press my Gangplank hold on bot lane, I've pretty much done my job, haven't I? Like as a top laner, at that point, with the way the draft went, I've pretty much done my job. I just need to survive. And maybe it didn't look pretty, and everyone can be like, oh, he had 50 CS down, But at the end of the day, the only people that care about you having minus 50 CS is LoL Esports, because they can show the stats. This guy sucks at laning.
Side boop. Boop.
Yeah. So, but like at the end of the day, I don't
the
feel like
first
me
thing we're
being
gonna show
that,
in
like
the
me
best
being
of
behind in the game was the reason why we couldn't close out. I think execution was more the issue.
Well, you know that when it comes to G2 versus Fnatic, if you guys get to that best of 5, first thing exactly, the Cyber's gonna come
The last time they played,
down 50 CS, and Venice will be like,
Bwipo a liability for this team. Really,
I mean, if Wunder doesn't hover GP at that point, I'm a bit disappointed.
yeah, it'd probably be a GP hover.
GP Rise sounds good.
Caps focusing in back in on the G2 side of this, not this G2 Fnatic game, although it is always going to be an interesting discussion because it was just an insane
was a
game.
fun game.
It was just an insane game, right? G2 overall, like you've had the struggles with Mickey, Promise Q subbing in doing pretty well, but like obviously dropping a lot of games in these last few weeks. What's going on in the G2 camp? Is it Vitality were on here? They're like, yeah, I just think G2 were like unconcerned. I think they locked first. They were just playing around. Like, what's your take on it?
Yeah, I mean, obviously going into the split, we had like a really, really strong start, and it's not just like from stage, but also from scrims. Like we were barely losing any games. So I was like, obviously it's a new team, so I was like not gonna say I was confident, but I was like a bit worried honestly because we were winning so much, and I was like afraid how it would show on stage. But it actually showed up, and I was really happy with that. And then we obviously just had a really good first half of the split, and that's like the 10th game is when we actually dropped to OG. And I mean, we get set it. Like, what can I say? But at that time, it was not like we were worrying, right? And we have never really been worrying. I think we just realized that, sure, we were only locked last week. We were locked for first, but already the week before, we felt like we were locked for first because we were like I think 3 wins ahead or something like this. We had to win 1 game in our last 4 games, so we basically assumed that we were gonna, like at least I did, and I'm pretty sure everyone did, that we were gonna get first. And it's not really something I had tried before because every other time I've been either like fighting to get first, or the first split I was fighting to get players right. So it was a bit weird, and we were talking about like what we were actually gonna do because obviously we had Mickey who didn't really shouldn't play as much as possible because of his wrist. So we were playing with Promiscu, and that also made it so like. We didn't really care that much about the games because we didn't really need to win. But at the same time, we didn't want to like promise you really hard, which I mean, I guess I failed a bit at, but anyway, like we wanted to win for Promise You kinda, but we also didn't want to like. We just wanted to relax, so we were like actually at our peak during playoffs, right? That's why I think, for example, Jisuke and Kapushad were not that worried because. I mean, we were not worried, and we're pretty confident still going into playoffs. I think a lot of people are going to be a lot of people are like think hyping, I don't know what it's called, disregarding us maybe because of our last weeks, because usually people judge most from last weeks. But at the same time, people also think that a lot of teams were fighting for their lives, and we were like, yeah, I mean, we were basically just like chilling a bit.
Do you think we've seen the strongest? I mean, the easy answer is like everyone will say no to this question because like, no, we're going to level up. We have a final form still to reach in best of 5. But in all honesty, if we're thinking about G2 over the course of the 9 weeks when we've seen you guys just absolutely maybe obliterate a certain team in, what was the time?
2035?
Is that like,
I remember.
Is that peak G2? Have we seen your guys' actual final form and now it's just about consistently hitting that each time?
I mean, I don't think so. I think, feel like, I mean, I don't know what I want to say honestly, but we saw NG like win like a 15-minute game last year in playoffs, and I mean we're gonna look to do the same, you know. I definitely don't think we have reached our peak. I don't even think we're close to it. I think what we showed was basically a new team going together, and we fit really well with each other. So we had a really strong early start, but that doesn't mean we're even like close to our peak. I'm not saying necessarily that we will like win even like I mean. Hopefully we'll win even harder than we did like early in the split, but you also have to think other teams were not really that strong at the start of the split. They also improved, right? And obviously we improved with them. And I'm pretty confident saying that we were a better team than we were back then now, and we will be even stronger in the future.
Feels like there's kind of 2 different types of evolutions, and teams can go through both of them, so I'm not saying it's exclusive. But in my eyes, I see a team like G2 and Fnatic, and I'm like, you have such experience on both these rosters that the evolutions that you guys go through is now integrating the new pieces, making sure that all of the synergy, all of the teamwork is there, and you guys get better as a team, versus a team like Vitality, which feels that there's still a ceiling to be hit from the individual pieces. Like we saw how much better Caboshard got, and just the span of like the last 3 splits, how much better Jizuke is getting, and that there still feels that there's improvement to be done on an individual basis. Do you guys think that you have that ceiling still individually? Like, does Caps get better as a player just by himself, or does G2 only get better through their synergy, how they work together, the strategy, their understanding of the game?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think you can always get better individually, even regardless of everything else, right? But usually it shows most when you actually improve as a team, and usually it's not necessarily like huge improvements. And as you can like see in Fnatic, and as I noted before, it can also just be stuff like them having an early game plan that like basically the first 3 minutes they get like a lead, and then they go from there, and then suddenly they look very different than when they didn't get this lead, you know. And so that's like the very obvious signs of like everyone's gonna say, oh, they improved a lot, or they look like a lot better. But on an individual level, you can definitely improve as well, and it's just like much harder to see that improvement, I think. And even if you say like Vitality might have improved a lot on the players, Capuchat also mentioned it was Mowgli suddenly showing up, or it was like his DPI, you know. So it's also like team things, you know. The things that you usually see are usually team things, and the things that are maybe a bit more hidden or things that won't show up that often is what you improve on yourself.
Of course, the hidden third type, which is your peripherals, can get better.
Yeah.
the combo shard buff specifically. But I'm curious, the same question to you guys on Fnatic. Like Nemesis is obviously a very young player. Do you feel like you guys are improving mechanically, individually, in like regards to laning phase, or is most of your improvement right now as a team and just like playing better as a group of 5?
Honestly, I feel like once you hit a certain point of competition, I think Worlds is a good example. I feel like one-on-one, you shouldn't be getting any advantages. I feel like this is just, you're just playing the game, you're trying to do what you can to get an advantage, but good players won't give you any edge. I'm going to go to the group stage, Invictus Gaming versus Fnatic, and I feel like that's a good showing of that.
The good memories.
Yeah, of course. Funnily enough, that good memory could have turned into a really bad one. And I think about this, right, because they played Gragas Irelia in the tiebreaker game. And I realize is when they pick this duo, is when they mean business. Right, that's when they want to camp and kill top. But I think they made a little mistake because the Irelia had a different name tag. I think that's where things went wrong. Jokes aside.
Great job, Feshi. What?
Yeah. Ning also whiffed that Gragas ult, and I feel like if he didn't, we could have seen that go really south really fast too. He was quite drunk that day, I think. But
Real great.
he was.
Full commitment to the character, really.
That said, what I'm trying to point out is that at a certain point, individual skill is no longer relevant in the sense that you can't get advantages unless the matchup is really, really lopsided.
But I just feel like so many professional players have this mentality of, because I agree to you to an extent that it's like once everyone knows how the matchups work, like I'm supposed to lose this matchup. It's fine, I'll go down 15 CS, but then I'll be able to do this, like know where their win conditions are. But then so many professional players then will stop going for like the crazy outplays because they're like, I can't do that because that's not how this works. And the other dude's playing like an absolute banana on the other side.
Yeah, but I think that's like, even if you do that, like that's what I'm saying, is like how the matchup plays. Like the Shy, for example, when I played against him for the first time, he's playing Fiora, I was playing the Yorgod. I know my champion was not very balanced, but you know, he was trying to go ham, you know, he was trying to kill me. He went all in, he tried to like really kill me, and it got like to a game of inches at that point, right? Happened in the World Finals in the first game as well. Like it was basically like, does he parry the ulti? Does he dodge the ulti? Like, you know, at that point, if Fear Beyond Death connects, he's dead, right? But that's like the idea of the matchup, right? Like you can push it to that point. You can't push it to the point where you're gonna have to flash my ult or parry it or do whatever. And if you do that, you'll survive. But if you don't, it's not like you're gonna kill me. My champion is like too broken or whatever you want to call it. Like the champion is just the way it is. And what I want to get into is at that point it's the jungler, right? Because when you push it to that point, there's something happening. Either there's a flash gone, or you have a teleport advantage, or you have cooldown advantage on your ultimate, anything like that. And when your jungler is there to capitalize on that fact that you're pushing it that hard, is when you're actually going to win. That's when you're going to look real good.
In high-tier competitive League of Legends, do you think jungle is the most important role?
It's the most important role to make a player shine. I think Fnatic was a good example of this in the sense that we were all able to hold our lanes on our own. None of us would break down completely up until that fateful day. And I feel like that kind of described Fnatic in the sense that, you could leave Caps 1 versus 2 or me 1 versus 2 or our bot lane 2 versus 3 or whatever, and the other side of the map would be able to slowly gain advantages without completely breaking down on the other side. However, when the jungler comes in, we're getting big advantages. Every single place gains an advantage, and I feel like that's what defines a good team. This is why, for example, a team like RNG, which you love talking about, either lives or dies by this blade. When he goes bot, the advantages are big. When he goes anywhere else, at the end of the game, they're discussing why didn't we go bot.
Well, that really depends on which nameplate is going bot.
Oh yeah, obviously, but then you have games like when Uzi walks into the turret and dies. I don't know. So, did you watch the game against the IG?
It tells me so much because
Was it game 3?
yes.
Yeah. Oh.
People see Uzi and like the Shy and Rookie, and don't get me wrong, those players are really good. Jackalope's a perfect example. They see them at Worlds and like, oh my god, this guy is so incredible. He's amazing. I'm like, I've watched probably 500 games of Uzi. That guy has done some banana shit.
Yeah.
Just like absolute peeled and tossed to the side. Like he is not perfect by any means. Shows up when it counts, which does count for something, but these players are definitely fallible. Fallible?
I mean, I agree. And I think that when you're going ham and you're trading those huge cooldowns, it can be either really good or really bad depending on where your jungler is and what the plan is, right? Because if you're like, and this is why a player like the Shy is as good as people consider him to be, and full credit to him. But when he does this, he's making sure that on the wraparound, his jungler is going to be there. And you're not going to have your flash because this guy made you flash, right? He made you burn the cooldown. And whether he made you traded it or whatever depends on how good you play, right? Because that's what it is. You get tested. Are you actually going to survive? You have to just fight to the death. And the way I want to describe this is a team like G2 is a resemblance in this, is when you want to fight this guy, or a team like G2, when you throw out your fist, you need to be ready to get your knuckles bruised. Because they're going to fight back. It's not like, oh, we have 4 people on the bottom side of the map. These guys are going to go on the turret 4 versus 3, and you're going to have to get your knuckles bruised. You're fighting.
Do you think G2 is the LEC equivalent of IG?
In that sense, yes. In the idea of like raw skill and where you feel like you can't actually push any advantages yourself, because I feel like this was the trouble Fnatic had against IG in the finals specifically, is I don't feel like anyone was confident to just push their advantage, just be the one forcing that. I don't want to I don't want this guy to go on me and force the flash on me. I want to go on him and force his flash, right? I want to fight him because I have the edge in the matchup. And that comes to draft in a bit. Like the idea in the draft is there because you need champions that are able to do that. But in that sense, yeah, I think so. I think you need to be willing to get your knuckles bruised when you brawl with G2.
Now, one thing that you kind of brought up was that, like, for the most part, outside of jungle, right? Like, people just kind of they play the role, they go where they're supposed to go. But last year, it felt like Caps, you were the guy that bucked that trend, and you've been a guy that's consistently bucked that trend, where like you're expected to, let's say, win a lane slightly or go even, and then you solo kill the guy. And then you kill him again, and suddenly you're like 1K up individually by 10 minutes. So if it came down to this, if you're in a position, let's say in playoffs, where you can't find these big individual advantages, how do you think G2 performs? Like, do you still feel really confident in you guys' like whole strength as a team? Because while I won't say that you guys relied on it every game, there are some clear examples where it's like Caps versus the world, and you either make the outplay and G2 wins the game, or like you don't, and it doesn't come through.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't think. Like, thinking back, I don't think I got like huge leads in lane ever. I mean, I did, right? But I don't think I necessarily got like solo leads in lane. Maybe I did like every now and then, like a few games, but it was not really something that happened a lot. It's not really something that should happen a lot, I think. As mentioned, it's like sure I can get ahead if I get a jungle gank, or if I get someone to help me, or if enemy laner really does something really stupid, But you're generally not gonna get like huge leads on your own. And I don't think we have necessarily relied on it. At the same time, I do think that if the game just, like, I feel like the way I feel is that we play really aggressive and we're really good at getting leads. But even if the game doesn't go our way, our mid game is really good. And I think I don't want to say we showed it, because these last few weeks we were not practicing as hard. We wanted to be a bit more relaxed, and it showed in the early game, We fell really far behind against Vitality, fell really far behind against Misfits, we fell really far behind against Fnatic, right? And all 3 of the games, mid game, we ended up like slowing out the game. Sure, some games it was more than others. Like the Fnatic game really went really late. The Vitality game we turned around, and the Misfits game, I think it went like 30-something minutes, even though they had a huge lead, right? And this is something that I think people don't realize about us, is that our strength is not necessarily just like all inning on early game and just like trying to get a lead and then winning. We're fine playing from behind. We're fine playing from ahead. And I mean, I just think that if we actually get a lead, it's basically over. And if we don't, then we can always like crawl our way back.
So I'm curious how you feel about the team right now going into your matchup versus Origin as we shift attention to playoffs. Because once again, we talk about recency bias. The public, I feel like, is definitely on the side of what the hell is going down with G2. Every pro team that we have brought on here, did Bwipo predict G2 to beat Origin too?
Everyone predicted G2.
Everyone, except for me and Frostgren, has now predicted G2 to beat Origin. So there's still a ton of confidence there. Now, Bwipo did ask for a specific asterisk that it would be 3-1 or 3-2, depending on if Promisq or Mickey X was playing, which I think is fair. But how do you feel about the level of G2? Do you feel like you guys are like clear number one still, despite these last few, let's say, more relaxed weeks?
Yeah, I mean, so we just like started scrimming again, right? Like for a few days ago. And yeah, I mean, I think we're good. I think we still have a way to playoffs, right? Because there's still like 1.5 week. But I think we'll definitely show up in playoffs. Where I'm like rank 1 in solo queue, so my skill, my peak is coming. Odd flex, I know, but I definitely think that we're gonna be able to show up against OG.
I like the flex. Bwipo, what rank are you in solo queue?
I don't even know.
Oh,
It's not that impressive. Like 160 something. I don't know.
it's number one. That's pretty big difference there.
Did you guys ever hide your solo queue? Because Nukeduck was talking about how he's got specific accounts that he tries to keep hidden so he can practice weird picks. I know that all three of you, Nukeduck included, have like pretty massive champion pools. Do you guys really go out of your way to try to find those specific counter matchups that you keep hidden away so you can pull out?
Depends on what champion specifically. If you feel like it's a champion that the enemy team wouldn't think of, then yeah, I think it's valuable to do that. But if you think it's a champion that like people are like looking at and they're like, is he actually? Is he actually gonna play this? I think we did this last year in summer playoffs against Schalke. Caps played like 10 games before God. Like just 10 games before. We weren't actually sure if the champion was the real thing, right? It turned out to be the real thing. But we weren't sure, like, are they gonna play it? Or whatever, let's just play like 20 games of solo queue on it and just make them be afraid that we might. And I have a few picks like that if you go on my OPGG profile, right? It's not hidden. Like, for example, Rengar. Am I actually gonna play Rengar top? You have to ask yourself, is this guy actually going to do that? And
Ivern jungle, Rengar top. Think about it.
Is this why Brox has been getting the chain Ivern bans for an entire season?
It's really to ban out Rengar.
No, this is the type of pick where it's like, if you want to throw a ban at it, you're welcome, But what situation am I actually going to pick it in? That's what they have to ask yourself. And that's the type of pick where you're like, you know what? If they ban it, it's a freebie, right? You get it for free. But there's certain champions where are really OP.
Yeah.
Like our god last year, where people aren't actually sure if they're really OP. So you just play them and just make them ban it, or you hide it. If you're convinced the champion is OP, you hide it. Ooh. Because then you come out game 1, you first pick this champion, and the enemy team's like, what the hell? Now the meta has become pick or ban this champion.
Do you think it's more valuable? Because I was just going to ask. Because in a best of 5, I would be like, why would you would just play it game 1 just to force them to ban it to change ban strategy? Or do you think that you hide something like that to, if needed, game 5? Or let's say game 3, where it's like, we have to win this. It's time to actually pull out the OP champion and give away your trump card.
I think that just depends on the nature of the champion. I think of how volatile it is. I think Victor was a very good example at Worlds. The champion suddenly shows up, and I just played like 20 or X amount of games on it on my solo queue account, It's like, is he actually OP? And then you see Keen absolutely demolish Licorice with it, and you're just like, holy. You're like, this champ is not balanced, Like, there is no way you can tell me this champion is balanced. Which is why, it kind of killed all the hype off in that matchup for me, because, when I see Afrika Freaks getting 3-0'd, when I see Keen solo killing the guy like 5 times over 2 games, I'm just like, all right, I think if I just pick Victor, everything will be okay. Because this champion was just disgusting. So, like, it goes both ways.
Caps, in your experience, like, especially like, because Nukeduck talks specifically about your matchup, your mid lane matchup, where he thinks that there's like these elements of mind games. And I think when we look at mid lane, you and Nukeduck are probably 1 and 2 right now. Like, do you feel that? Do you feel those mind games heading in? Like, are you thinking of like a million different special counter picks just to fight this guy?
I mean, I don't think I'm really having like that many mind games. I've always like had like a lot of weird champions to pick sometimes, you know, and like to comment on what you said about like when you played, usually you just pick it if it's like a good situation, you know. For example, like last year we picked the Vayne in game 3. It's not like we picked the game 1 because like maybe it wasn't a good situation. Not like we picked game 2 wasn't a good situation. But when the perfect situation comes, and then you also have to think, do I actually want to show it, right? And there we just picked it, you know, because I mean, I guess we just showed it. Because sometimes you want to hide things, right? And especially, actually, I don't want to say anything, but sometimes you want to hide things, and sometimes you want to show it. And if you actually want to show it, then you just pick it when it's actually good, right? You don't want to just pick it just to pick it, you know. But I don't think I mean I'm not really like making that many mind games. Maybe like from an outside perspective, it's like because I play a lot of weird champions in solo queue. But I play a lot of weird champs just to play them because I want to try them out, see if they actually work. But I could imagine that from an outside perspective, it looks like really hard to look at because I'm playing so many weird champions. Like right now, my solo queue is like, if you go on my OGG, it's like a real mess.
I think he's playing top laners mid lane. Like last I checked, you were playing like every top laner that was OP.
And just top lane, honestly.
Yeah. I don't want you.
I'm actually re-rolling.
I don't want you to
so imbalanced.
give any special picks away. But for the solo queue mid laners out there, is there anything that's like maybe from last season's pile of cheese picks that you can recommend people trying for fun? You can also wait until like you guys have played it on stage and then share it. Like I don't know.
I mean the thing is like if I'm sure I can say, I mean I played like the Vayne mid, right, and stuff like this, and then you see it pop up in spring, early spring, and a lot of people playing it. Even teams from other than EU are starting to play it, like in China and Korea. And things like this is why I would never say if I think something's actually good, because sure, it might not be good right now, but in 5 months, in a year, in 2 years, it might actually be a thing.
Right now, you could say it. Right now, you could be trolling, but like 3 months from now, it could actually be OP.
Exactly. That's why I'm just playing everything, and then when something gets meta, I have an advantage, right? Especially, it might not matter as much as for like best of ones and like regular season, even playoffs. But when you go to like international tournaments and 2 days before or semifinals, you find out Victor is super OP, for example, top lane, right? Then it's like a huge advantage if you actually. Bwipo used to play a lot of Victor, right? So he's like really lucky in that sense.
Yeah.
but that basically like I want to have that for like as many champions as I can, so that like let's say Rammus mid is secret OP, you know, and it turns out that way, then I'm like I'm the best at taunting everyone, you know.
This is actually perfect because we have both Bwipo and you guys have again really stupid champion picks sometimes. But like Nukeduck talked about how his secret to maintaining such a large champion pool was the fact that it was about recognizing what was meta, having those fundamentally there, and then just finding niche counter picks. And then it wasn't about learning every matchup with like the Swain. It was about learning the little Sandra Swain matchup and just the intimacy there. As you guys are maintaining your champion oceans, do you have the mentality of I just need to learn like against the meta champions, or are you saying more I'm going to play everything, I'm going to learn every single matchup, how every champion works, and then that way I'm just indestructible?
Yeah, I mean, so I think a big thing that people might misunderstand about like big champ pools is not like you look at Nukeduck or you look at me or something like this and you think, oh, he can play every single champion. I mean, I might play. It's like saying I can play any champion, but I can't play every champion, you know. Mm-hmm. So like, if I want to play a champion, I can practice it and then I can play it. But it's not like I can play every champion at once. Like it's not like I'm going to playoffs and I can play every single champion from A to Z. And if I pick it, then I'm like at the top level. You practice certain things, and that's why people go and check solo because they think like, oh, what is he practicing? Or scrims. I mean, you guys can check that, right? But that's also why you practice, right? You practice those things, and then you get really good at certain champions. Let's say Nuke was playing Swain, right? Then he probably played a lot in solo queue, and then he went on stage and played it, right? It's not like he, like 1 year from now, he hasn't played any Swain last year, and then he just pulls out the Swain and is like insane on it. I mean, sometimes it is something like that for some champions, especially like champions that have been spammed to the ground. Like Orianna Syndra was meta for like so long that I'm pretty sure every mid laner can just play it now. Like you don't actually need to practice it, but most champions you actually need to practice before you play them, and that's when you can actually play it.
Bwipo, is it the same for you? Is it about mastering the champion's intricacies or how that champion fits in like the workflow systems of the top lane?
Depends when and where you pick it.
God damn it, Bwipo, that's a bullshit answer.
No, it's not. Like, okay, you tell me, oh, I'm going to pick Swain into Lissandra. That sounds like the easiest matchup of my life.
Correct
When I pick Swain blind and people pick Lissandra, I'm like, you want to lose the game? Okay, you can lose the game. You know, but when I pick Swain blind and this guy picks Kled, you know, there's a difference. I agree because, you know, mid laners have the privilege of the 5 pick. They get to choose. Right? I don't get to choose. When I get told you're playing Victor, I'm picking it blind. If this guy wants to pick Kled or Jarvan or Jace or whatever, I'm playing it. Right? So for me, it's not about, I can get this easy matchup that's ridiculously, that's super lopsided. No, I have to play every matchup.
But you guys had Urgot for like 10 years. You just like slapped Urgot. You're like, this baby goes for miles.
Yeah, okay, sure, that works. But when it comes to cheese picks like this, right? You pick Swain, you pick Victor, because this is what I blind picked, right? Like, this people don't get. I was just slamming these picks. They were my Urgots. They're like Urgot 2, Urgot 3. They were Urgot 2, Urgot 3. They were there just in case Urgot got banned. So I think that's a really big difference. I think there's a really big difference between slamming your blind pick, right, which is like a niche champion, and then just challenging this guy, do you play the counter, right? Because we were like, if we blind pick Swain against Ray, he's probably going to pick Kled, because this is like one of the champions that is considered okay into it. For example, if you blind pick Victor, we didn't realize it at the time, but when we went back, we're like, Jarvan sounds pretty good into Victor. And I think we had like 3 champions that would just get caged and die by to the Jarvan. And then they didn't pick it, right? And you're like, But that's some of the things you don't think about when you blind pick a champion, because you also open up their weird picks. But you don't think about it. So to come to your point, yes, playing one specific matchup and playing a counter pick specifically into the matchup that everyone is blind picking is a good thing. But it really depends on when you pick it in the draft, because if your coach tells you, you're picking 1-2 here, what do you pick? Sometimes the meta just doesn't allow you to pick a meta champion, right? You can't just be like, oh, I'm going to pick Gnar here like the last 6 years, or I'm going to pick Maokai here, or I'm going to pick Urgot nowadays, or like not any longer, right? That's what the nerf happened, and that's when it changed. Suddenly you have to find that other weird champion, and for me it was Aatrox, right? You saw it, I just picked it, and we'll see what happens. Renekton showed up for that same purpose. Kennen shows up for that same purpose, right? Everyone has their own different pick, and then the matchups evolve, right? They start to change. What do you see into this? Everything changes. And then, of course, you have the cheating is the flex pick, right? You pick a champion, and you're like, I'll take it if it's
or you save last pick.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good way of drafting, but it evolves from the same idea.
Yeah.
So, yes, it is good, and it's much easier to practice for one specific matchup if you know the enemy team is probably going to draft it. For example, Wukong into Zoe. We were ready, we were playing Wukong for this matchup. Were we ready to play in another matchup? I'm sure Caps was willing to play in another matchup if the situation was good. But if you know the situation is going to be good because you know they're going to pick it, well, of course, it's going to be much easier to execute on this champion. Whereas if you're being told 1-2 or 2-3, you're blinding a champion. Find me something.
Yeah, I imagine the difference between blind pick Wukong and counter pick Wukong.
Yeah.
It's pretty significant.
Living life on the edge.
Yeah. And to be fair, I think we actually blind picked it because I think they picked Ryze, and we thought it was Ryze mid, and then we picked Wukong, and then they actually was Ryze top.
Wait, what?
And they last picked Zoe.
Wait, what? Really?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they Zoe last picked.
Favorite hobby is actually, I love listening to team comms and listening to team comms when there's like shit tons of flex picks and just I'll like quickly swap to the other team. The other team just like, I think it's going mid.
Really think this guy's gonna play at top. Like it could go jungle. Really think it's gonna be. I don't know.
That's why more credit to my Gangplank pick, right? Because we know Ryze is going top when I pick Gangplank. See how that works?
Yeah.
I'm taking one for the team.
Hey,
we
guys,
know it's going.
If I pick a losing matchup, he'll put the Ryze top.
Yeah.
Problem solved.
The best part is when people are like, Ryze is mid, and then Ryze gets flexed to top, and then you listen to the comms, no one says a word.
Yeah.
The coach is like,
I think our draft philosophy is like, if we don't know where things are going, then no one else does.
Yep. Hey.
Honestly, the amount of drafts we were just been like completely confused. I mean, okay, not on stage, like at least not that much,
true
but
animal style.
I mean, honestly, like when you locked in Cassio on 4, I was like, I saw Ryze Jarvan, I'm like, all right, it's one of those games, and then I see Cassio, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure it's going bot into Lucian because some people like that, but you never know.
Like, it might be Ryze spot. Like,
yeah.
I love flex picks, dude. It makes every draft a little bit more interesting. Also, it just makes every color caster look slightly worse at their job because they're like, they go through the same thing the enemy team goes. They're like, yeah, he's played this in solo queue. I really think it's going, and I was wrong. And never mind, it's a jungle pick. It can jungle apparently.
It will never get approved, but the broadcast would be so funny if we could just pop into team comms, like when some of that bullshit gets like, because the players say you guys say the funniest. It's so good. I always love when the coach is just like, good luck, guys.
Yeah.
And set off.
I think last year Dylan did that a few times.
Yeah. I mean, I remember as well back in the day with like the MF pick against SKT when it was like support, and I just remember they actually showed the comms from like Faker when they picked MF against him, and he was like, no, it must be a fail pick. They mispicked. There's no way they picked misfortune support, you know. And I can just remember reading that or like watching it, and I was just like laughing so much.
The greatest thing is that on opposite sides of the bracket, after the MF support pick was picked, there was actually a world, I'm telling this to the audience, where Lux support was going to be a massive thing, because Lux wasn't revealed to be like the answer to MF support until much later on, I think after the World Championship. But because the team who picked it, I can't remember who it was, they were on one side of the bracket, and then the team screaming the Lux support as the counter to MF support was on the other side of the bracket. All the casters were like checking with scrims like, the Lux support is going to come out, and then you kept seeing like every time Lux would get hovered, be like, but then it never got played.
Draw my knowledge, let me draw my knowledge. I've done research, let me talk. Never mind.
Deficio's up to like 3 a.m. like taking down all these
He's
Lux
like watched
notes.
every Korean solo queue. He's like, let me watch.
Just
scrims,
throws out 6 pages because it never gets played, and everyone's like, oh, well, at least solo queue was saved.
Oh god.
I mean, I guess then you have it ready. Then, like we talked about with the picks I'm hiding, in like 1 year when MF gets picked and someone picks Lux into it, then you have the notes ready.
You're like,
That's how it is. That's what I'm ready. I'm also just my favorite thing is like weird counter picks that people come up with and seeing if they actually work or pan out. Focusing back in on playoffs, I have a hypothetical question for you, Cavs. Let's say you're third place. You know who the 5th place team is. You don't know who the 6th place team is, and you have to pick an opponent. Do you instantly lock Vitality as your opponent, or do you wait to see if it's Schalke or SK? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm not sure actually. I mean, I think every team has a different matchup into different teams. Maybe I think I've always like respected Vitality a lot. I feel like even when we played against Vitality, like in 2018 spring, we were like more scared of them than like G2 and Splice, because while we might not necessarily think they're a better team than the other teams, they have like this randomness, or like they have like this really aggressiveness where they just like, I don't know, go top and then they hope they get a lot of kills, you know, and maybe they do, and then they actually snowball. Or maybe like they gank mid, you know, we saw Gilly sack a few times as well.
whatever Bwipo's answer is after this, I just want this footage cut with the Vitality Fnatic game, where at least one game Bwipo's gonna just take it, and there's gonna be like 6 people.
It happened in spring. I remember. I was actually it was the Cho'Gath game. It was the Cho'Gath game. I remember. I think it was the only Cho'Gath game I played in spring, and I tanked a 3-man gank at like level 5 and burned the guy's flash. And then I remember the Talia walled behind my turret, and the Olaf just ran at me, and he solo killed me basically. So like I was just like in a cage with an Olaf and a Talia, and Kovic was just hitting my tier 1, you know. He didn't care, you know. Like it was like whatever, he's dead anyway. I was just getting mauled, you know. And I'm just like,
thought there was plates, you know.
It's literally the Thunderdome. You're literally just like, well, there's a wall behind me. I'm just a flashless Cho'Gath. This is my life now.
He's like the Leonardo DiCaprio cosplay is like the bear is just.
Oh god, it's a powerful visual.
But I mean, that's basically like, so I think Vitality is like scary to play against always, because there's always that random factor. Even though a lot of people say like, you know how they're gonna do it, still like they're really aggressive, right? So that makes it kind of coin flip sometimes, and it's kind of scary, you know, in that way. So I would probably prefer playing against Schalke or Sply,
or
Schalke or SK.
Yeah.
Just because I think we would just win probably, and they probably wouldn't like put up much of a fight.
All right, now we've asked literally everyone but Fnatic about this. I wanted to make sure we got Fnatic last, but it's now your turn. What? Why Vitality?
Why not? Give me one good reason why a team
they're
that has
crazy.
only performed in best of 1s, you shouldn't take in a best of 5. I'm gonna tell you this right now, and you're gonna give me an argument as to why I'm wrong. Last year, spring, the first best of 5 Vitality played, they almost lost to H2K. They went to game 5,
Hey,
and they
you
might
be
as well
kind.
have.
That team
hold
went
on.
to semifinals at Worlds, or was it quarterfinals?
Wait, what?
Making up
H2K?
groups.
Well, I mean, it was HK, but it was like a different HK.
Oh, it was a really different
Yeah, it was
H2K.
really different. That's like-
please.
No, I got this Reddit comment. Bwipo, what is he talking about?
No, like, you know what I mean? Like, they are inconsistent on a whole new level.
I mean, to be fair, they only won that series because the jungler at the time for H2K hard ran it down. He just, I think, I can't remember who it was.
So, like, that happened, right? Then you go on, you know, we play our best of 5, and the only game we lost, which was actually kind of a 1 game, was when I went 0-6, because they actually just kept coming top, and we weren't able to trade anything on the other side of the map, right? You know, if you like, I even told Joey, you know, if there's any team we're gonna play against, you know, if you give Kabashard 5 shots at winning the game through top against me, I'm confident that it's not gonna happen. Like, even the game where I played Yorick, right? He said I gave up too much, right? But even with giving up so much, he still like. Did he win the game on his own? No, he didn't.
But yeah,
If your stance is, if you give Kabashard 5 shots at me, I'm gonna sucker punch him out of the way. But you could have had Whirlip.
Yeah, but the thing is like, what do I want? Do I want someone that thinks he's going to carry the game against me by like picking some random like picking whatever he's going to pick? I don't know. And that's the Kabashard special, right? You know, if you're going to pick Lucian top, maybe. Or do I want some guy that's going to blind pick Poppy and, you know, like pray to the gods? You know, I don't want to have a 0-0 match up top because I play aggressive too. I want to get an advantage too. And
He's like, if someone's gonna explode, it's gonna be one of us, but there'll be fireworks.
no, but the point is
They're
just
fast die young.
the thing is that it's the only way they can play the game too, right? Jizuke has to be enabled first of all because they're not going to win through top with just their jungler. They just don't. Because that's what happened last time we played them, right? They brought their bot lane eventually, but it was too late. The advantages were already created. We were in a pretty good spot. Now, of course, I died, which was a very telegraphed swap. But okay, you can play me for that one. But that's what I'm saying. You know, if I'm only dying to really telegraphed plays, what if I don't die to the telegraphed play? Aren't we just winning?
yeah, but also like a lot of.
Let me break this
Hold
down.
on.
You're like, I saw it coming and I died anyway, but next time I won't.
Next time when I see it coming, if
Yeah,
I
but
don't die.
it's just I don't know. It's just the thing about Vitality is like I feel like they need extra. Like it's not like they can just play through one lane,
on,
like
but-
play through top and win just off of that advantage.
But so the thing is that yeah,
Before we go into this, I have to pee so bad.
You can go. You
so
can go. You
be
just
the
go.
defense here.
yeah, you just go.
Keep
Go,
him
go,
honest.
Go. All right. Wonderful. I did that once on the dive, so I can't actually flame her for that. So here's the thing: is that one of the things that we brought up was like, but this is a different Vitality roster.
How?
So that would be my question. Do you feel like this is exactly the same as that spring?
I mean, I think the
split
jungler is a lot better at playing through top. But, and here comes the but, it's also still the only thing they're willing to do. I'm sure they can play through mid. I'm sure they can play through bot. I'm sure they can do whatever the hell they want. But the last few weeks, they've looked abysmal. You can't tell me otherwise because they beat our record and not in a good way. They took the loss.
Yeah, no, and
Faster than
look,
we
like
did.
I'm on the same page with you that Vitality has.
So
been
in
on
that
the
sense,
downswing.
right, like I can explain why, but at the end of the day, I just told Joey if there's any team that I feel like isn't going to win a best of 5 against us, because again, I gave them a 3-1, right, because there is a chance. I scratched out the 0 because I'm like, you know what, they could take a game off of us, right? They can, but Vitality's known for throwing games, you know, and you know when they start Baron and 50-50 it when they're 5k gold up, I'm just like, you know, I know the game is going to go late. Vitality cannot cleanly close out a game. They literally can't. They haven't for a year and a half. Why would they suddenly in this playoffs be able to do it? I know they did it like once or twice or 3 or 4 times, but over the course of all the games they've played, they can't close out a game properly. They don't do it. Maybe properly is the wrong word, but cleanly. You can always punch back.
Looking at your guys' game against us, but
No, but you get the idea, right?
yeah.
I mean, I'm sure
but you-
Caps agrees with this, no?
Yeah, I mean, you said yourself so that they're like inconsistent, and at least for me, playing against the team, I would rather be like kind of counting on myself to like perform than like my opponents like their level.
Yeah, okay, but that's my point. I'm counting on my team to perform because I know the game's going to 35 minutes, and I'm super convinced that our players are capable of carrying games at any like. I'm going to bring up my Reckless trump card here. Boom. I have Reckless on my team. If the game goes 6 items, I'm betting on this guy to win me a 5v5 and winning me the game. So I know Vitality's not going to close out the game. I know they're not.
There's a lot of confidence, Bwipo. This is a ton.
Yeah, I'm pulling it out. Boom. He's going to win me the game. Hylissang, he's going to find me and engage. He's going to start a fight for me. I'm going to win that game if it goes late.
But you can see from an outside perspective why people would look at this and go, this feels like a gamble. Because while you're talking about this inconsistency, and yes, there is those 1, 2, 3, 4 games, however many games you want to talk about where they do close out cleanly, Vitality are still a super explosive team. And one of the bets you're making is that if they do get this 5k gold lead, that they are still going to go for the risky Baron. But what happens in your world if Vitality are suddenly much more patient, much more controlled?
But that's what I'm saying. Do you really think they're going to win a game off that? Because they haven't shown to be able to do it. Like, they always go for the explosive play because they don't play slow. They
Well-
don't know how to slow down.
What happens if they get a mountain drake and then they just one shot
Mountain
Baron?
Drake,
Then they just one shot
Sticks
Baron.
double lift.
But that's the thing. They can't get a mountain drake because they don't play around bot lane. Like they just
Well,
don't. Their bot lane is 2v
fair. That's
2vx every single game. Like they're actually being ignored. They pick a hard winning bot lane to not int.
But they can still get a mountain drake, like not in the first like 15 minutes. You know?
Yeah, of
like,
course.
They get ahead in the game.
I mean, obviously, but I'm just saying that if you're ahead on the bottom side of the map, which I think is realistic against Vitality, with which is how they've been playing the entire split, right? They basically just said, you know, Attila, you can have Lucian or Draven, and I'll see you at 25 minutes. You know, just pick a champion that has pressure so you don't int. This is what it looks like, right? Fine. You know, you won't have pressure, and you're gonna have to play a champion like that. That's not gonna scale. And then we know you can't close out a game because they've shown not to be able to.
All right. I mean,
and then the question just becomes,
well,
do you really want to play like an even game, or do you want to play a skewed game where you feel like you're advantaged? Because I feel like I'm advantaged. I told Joe, you know, I put my 2 cents in. I'm like, look, last time we played, the Kappa had a pretty big advantage, but he wasn't carrying the game. Like he was the leading force, but he didn't carry the game. He didn't actually put the win on the board. So I'm okay with that. Like I'm okay with taking that on and just being like, you know what? I don't think this guy's gonna carry. In spring, my first best of 5 I've ever played, it was the same thing, and he couldn't do it back then. If he's that much better now,
I don't know. I just want to see. You
I didn't
top
feel
one
it.
matchup. I just really actually hope you guys both play like real top laners and just like actually go toe to toe. And then like
I
this is
always
not-
play real top laners. The thing is, last year I did it. Like, you know, I was on tank duty playing Gangplank. That was our running meme, wasn't it? Like, Gangplank's a tank because you don't need resources.
My favorite thing about Bwipo, he's like, back in my day, we had to go uphill both ways in draft lane. I was blind picking everything. I got last pick. I still had to
I play
blind pick.
fine. Play wherever I need to go. I have suffered. I will not be taken out.
that's what I said about certain champions just have that. Like, that's what I meant, and that's my philosophy, right? Is if I'm good at the game, I'm not going to give you an advantage even if I have a bad matchup. You can have your 20 CS, or in our last case, you're 30 or 40.
50.
But am I going to cost my team the game? Not immediately.
Well, I like that this is what was really thought out and really well planned, at least. Not immediately going to cost your team the game. And I'm curious to see how that matchup unfolds. As we're coming up on the end here, and before we get into Twitter questions, I do want to ask, get a little bit of insight on Caps on how you're feeling. There's obviously a ton of confidence from these boys in their vitality. They got to pick their opponent. Now, you didn't. And OG seems to be an opponent that the public are really big on right now. All the pros, once again, still heavily in the G2 camp. Overall, like, what do you think is going to be the deciding factor in this matchup versus Origin?
I mean, obviously, we hope. Like, I hope that Mickey's wrist will actually like heal. You know, it's getting better, but it's still like not that great. But I think even if we play with Promiscu, even if Mickey doesn't play and we play with him, like if he doesn't like practice and we just play with him anyway, I think. I mean, I don't know if that's like anything necessarily that's about to decide the game. I think sure if Nuke Dog gets like a really good matchup, if he pops out on set, then maybe he can carry. But I think if he doesn't carry, then I don't see how OG will win, because they play like a really slow style. And the one time we lost them was because Nuke actually just popped off. But I think like them playing like really slow game will not work against us. We're gonna fight them, and yeah, I think we'll distract them to the dirt and we'll win there. You know.
That's what I want to see, dude. I love Clash of
I
Styles.
agree with this. That's why I gave OG a 3-1, because I can't see them winning a clean game. Honestly, it's completely possible, but I feel like the thing about like playing a slow, clean game like this is there's a lot of openings where OG needs to be incredibly disciplined. And I feel like that's where, honestly, most teams struggle, right? When you're playing a really clean game, the discipline needs to be there. And obviously, it's easy to play a clean game against a team that's not going to actually just, you know, drag you to the dirt, like we just said. But when a team is, it need to be really disciplined or be willing to.
I mean,
to go
G2's in that team. G2's literally covered in mud looking.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm
step over the
saying, you
line,
know.
buddy. Like, let's go.
And that's why I can see, that's why I'm giving G2 the edge. But when it comes to just playing a clean game of League of Legends, you know, and you're just playing League of Legends, I think OG is a really good team at that, right? They're just playing the game. They don't do anything special, but they don't do anything wrong.
Can you hand me your brackets really quick? I want to get one question in on this. Of course, once again, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be publishing the brackets later. That's what I wanted to see. All right, so this is.
They both have each other there.
They both have each other in the finals. That's what I like to see, folks. G2 Fnatic in the finals. I mean, admittedly, we predicted Origin to be there, so in order for this to happen, we both have to be wrong, but that's fine. 3-0, though.
Wait, did G2 put a 3-0?
Do you put a 3-0, Caps?
So Okay.
That one you're going to have to explain, because Bwipo said 3-2 at least.
Yeah,
Give us
yeah.
3-1
credit.
if it's with promise key.
3-1 if it's with promise.
Well,
That's
maybe
the
3-0.
asterisk.
Yeah, well, okay. But I just want to defend my things first because, like, I think Fnatic has been looking really strong. Is what everyone is saying, right? And I agree. Obviously,
Apparently
you
not
guys are on,
strong
like
enough.
8 wins in a row or something.
Yeah, we're at 0.
8-0 in a row, right? But I also think a lot of the leads come from, as I said, like the early first 3 minutes. Yeah. And I think if the game is even at 3 minutes, then I think that they're gonna have a really hard time. Like the rest of the early game. Like, that's just
my counter argument to that is so I was watching G2 Misfits, and when I left that game at like 7 minutes, I was like, this one's over. You know, there's no way Misfits win. And then I come back half an hour later, and Misfits win.
Yeah, I mean that's why.
What happened there? You know, so like I don't disagree with you in the sense that we do get our advantages, but if you really think you can't throw a lead,
no, but that's why I throw out my we didn't like face us hard card. I mean that's actually how it is, you know. Like,
We weren't trying. Boom.
You weren't trying to win the game.
Sandbagging.
But that's actually what I throw out.
That's a rough one.
But basically what I'm actually like trying to get is that I think Fnatic has been relying like a lot on their 8 wins to like on like early game cheeses, and I think those are worse in best of fives. Even though I still feel like we see a lot in China, a lot especially. So maybe they can make it work, right? But I believe that Fnatic will find other ways to win the game. And as mentioned, like we always had a strong mid game, late game on Fnatic, right? And I wrote 3-0 for Fnatic against Vitality, but I think that series is like 3-0 either way. And I think if Fnatic doesn't change, basically up their game since like the last few weeks, I think they will actually lose. But that's...
Oh, I mean, I respect it.
I can respect a man who will say that on the table with a Fnatic.
I mean, I respect it. You know, like, so if we play like shit, we're gonna lose. Well, yeah, I mean, I agree with that.
I mean, it's just like I think. So I mean, basically what I said is like I think Fnatic has been looking strong, right? But it's like unreliable strong. I feel like, and I think you guys can up it.
Yeah.
But if you don't, then I think like because as I said, you're going all the way, right? You're like 3-0. It's 3-1 and 3-2. I mean, I guess it's going like.
Yeah, I mean,
Fnatic are making the run.
Yeah, but exactly, they're making the run, or I think they're just gonna get 3-0. And maybe they take a game, right? And maybe they're gonna go 3-1. And now everyone's gonna say, "Oh, but you said 3-0 and they got 3-1."
But I think an element of this is that so many people just look at it as like Vitality versus Fnatic, Splice versus Fnatic, Origin versus Fnatic, as opposed to Fnatic have to play. How many best of fives is that?
So many best of fives.
That's like
4 best of fives.
20 max games. And I think when you look at it in that scope, that's more games than your entire split possibly to make this run. Do you guys have 20 games worth of
gas?
Gas.
I mean, I've got a lot of gas to give, that's for sure. No, I think at that point, I mean, I agree, right? It's a tough run, but at the end of the day, it's a marathon. You know, it is a marathon for us, right? We need to get there to the end, and along the way, a lot of small things can change and be different. And I feel like that's where we have our advantage in the sense that, like, I think I'm flexible enough as a player to randomly pull out a champion that's going to pull us a win and shape the meta a bit. I feel like Reckless, Hylissang, Broxa, like, we're all just... Even Nemesis, right? He's like the least tested in that sense, but I'm confident that when we get to the best of 5 stage, adaptability is going to be one of our strengths. Like, we're going to be willing to just change our draft snap. You know, like, okay, this didn't work out. Boom. You know, when you said that, I laughed a bit.
I was like, you said I wasn't going to say anything, but you're like,
Zoe Kassadin.
He's got Zoe. He's got the Kassadin.
What? No, Kassadin's one of his best picks.
It just didn't work out for us because we're not very good at playing around the champion like that. I'll be honest, or we weren't at least. But this is what I'm saying is that we're willing to just change, and if we feel like, oh, you know, we need more scaling here. There's none of us that are gonna be like, I can't play this matchup. It's too hard. We're just gonna be like, let's go.
That's what I want to hear. So we have one thing left to do, and it is Twitter questions. This first one I want to give to you, Caps. Now, Perks was supposed to be here to defend himself. But he's not, which is part of the reason why I'm going to ask this question.
I spent all of this time looking up
I'm going to do 2
Twitter questions. And
quick
back to back.
No, fine. We're gonna get 2, and they're both basically the same question. First from Casper at X Chuddy. You versus Perks, Yasuo 1v1. Who's the better Yasuo?
Well, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious. I think I would definitely take the Yasuo 1v1. I know he thinks that that's a different way. I can say that
Sam,
much.
good G2 content piece right there.
Yeah, that's
Give
true.
that one's free. You guys
Where
can
does
take that
Yasuo go?
Mid lane.
Mid lane.
one. You guys will get that later. Second question from Gary the Carry. Who plays the best Rise on G2? And why is it Wonder? Is what he says. But is it you? Is it Wonder? Is it Perks? Who's the
So we were
best
actually
Rise?
like looking at we looked at them yesterday. I'm sorry, but we looked at them on Twitter, the questions, and we were like laughing about them, you know. And I think everyone is like really confident in their own Rise. So again, I'm gonna say it's my Rise because I'm the one here. But if you ask any of them, then they'll say their Rise. So I guess a Rise 1v1 is like not as hype as a Yasuo 1v1. That sounds kind of like
Rise 1 sounds really troll.
we can go on Baron Pit and pro Qs on Sunday.
Actually, that's a good one. It's like Mundo, but with Rise.
You have all these questions prepped.
No, you took my Twitter questions. What I was going to say, no, I have a statement though. So many people, because we were talking about like MVP votes later on, and Perk's names always comes up. I don't think Perks will get MVP. I think it is worth putting him up there because making that role swap is hard. But just to offer some Bwipo support, no one was like, Bwipo for MVP for the role swap there. So like Perks is reinventing the goddamn wheel here.
I mean, that's just life, you know. I mean, I feel like honestly, the reason why like there's no chance, there was no real chance for me to get MVP that split was because I feel like Caps was obviously getting all the attention. I mean, at some point, I think we all identified with having 3 solo laners and 2 junglers in that split. so it was kind of hard for me to look good, you know. Like I'm laning 2 versus 1 on the meta of the week, you know. It was like I think every week we had a new pick bot lane for me ready. You know, Victor came out, Galio came out, like some with less success than the others, but
Yeah.
I think I played like 7 unique champions in like 8 games or something. I would just play a new champion every week. So in that sense, you know, full credit to Caps for that split.
Caps, who's the better bot laner? Perks or Bwipo?
He's got to say Perks. He's on that team. We'll let you think about it. You don't have to say anything.
I mean, let me ask him this question: how many times do you get your support now that you're playing with Perks?
Well, Mickey played Pike. He did play Pike, you know?
But how many times did he come mid compared to when I was playing?
Yeah, I mean, Huli did go mid a few times. That's fair, but I think obviously Bwipo was a bot laner, right? And I think a lot of the reason that people didn't put him in the MVP vote and stuff like this was also because you were like, I mean, you were bot lane, but you were like not really bot lane.
Yeah,
You know
yeah.
what I mean? Like Luca is actually like Perks is actually like an AD carry now, you know.
Yeah.
And Bwipo, everyone I guess probably thought that it was like a matter of time, right? Like I
Yeah.
don't think anyone expected Bwipo to play AD carry next
What do you
year,
mean?
you know. And
we're ready.
G2
we saw
bans
the
Zaya.
Zaya in your
Yeah, the Zaya
We're
was
like,
ready.
We're ready to go.
Zyra Khan was sick. We're
Yeah.
smurfing.
All right, one final question before we close out from Scandi perspective at Scandianvia. It almost looks like Scandinavia, but it's not. Scandinavia. For Bwipo, just in case you do manage to get a word in, do is capitalized here, love it. You had a couple very good games, but Wonder Vizicachi still seem to have your number. This is 2 questions, I guess. But I just want to get to the last one, which is, do you consider yourself like a carry top laner? Is that like, if you had to define your style, are you a carry top laner? Or in this case, this is their example, are you more a master of tanks like Soaz? Like, how would you
Master of
define...
tanks. But that's like 2 polarizing.
I feel like if
things.
Soaz heard himself be described as a master
of
he would be
tanks.
mad.
The Maokai King.
Oh, I just want to. You like mumbled it a bit, but I heard Vizicachi in there.
Oh, yeah,
I don't
so
know when
there's 2 parts.
Vizicachi had my number this split because I remember the Jace Kennen game. He did not have my number, and then the next game we played, I do believe he died 1 versus 1, which is a solo kill.
No, I was kind of glossing over that, but the other half of the question is, from this guy's perspective, Wonder and Vizicachi do seem to have your number.
How? Like I wonder, fair play. You know, the guy shit on me, right? Like he can have it. You know, like whatever. Play Jason Oren and play GP in her eyes. Sure, you know, like I agree. He beat me.
his puppy is better.
All right, Vizicachi's puppy's better.
Yeah,
Right,
probably.
that's why. But you know what I mean?
All right.
Anyway, to answer the question, am I a carry top laner? I don't think you're a carry top in the sense you pick a carry champion, you carry top. You know, like if you're playing Ornn and you're pushing like a madman and you're just like fighting everyone, you're carrying from top lane too. You know, like
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, I guess.
So are you a carry top laner?
I mean, I'll fight like a madman and try and push advantages. That's for sure. So I guess in that sense, I'm not a master of tanks that just sits behind his turret and waits for his team to come or something. I don't know.
All right. Well, that's it. That's all we got. we're literally almost out of room on our memory cards. We've gone for so long. So I appreciate you both taking the time to come. Good luck to both of you in your dream playoff run and your matchup in the finals, which you've both agreed on seeing. So
We'll see you there.
We can handshake on that one.
yeah, handshake.
I'll see you there.
See you in the finals. All right, that's fine.
I put 3-0, you put 3-2, so maybe we like settle it like 3-1 for us.
We'll see.
Depending on who's on stage.
Well, it depends how many cheeses we can pull up, apparently.
And we, of course, there's a bet video coming out later this week. The Yamato bet is finished. We're going to show that video later this week. We're also going to have playoff graphics for everyone's predicted playoffs runs. And yeah, that's going to do it for us here on the second half of the playoff special. Thanks once again to you guys for joining. Thanks to the Vitality boys who were on earlier. Otherwise, thank you for watching. This has been Euphoria Season 3, Episode 11.
11.
Later.
Oh, guys. Put you.
Wait, are we allowed to have a window open in our room?
No, you're not.
Why not? No way!